Hey everyone, I'm midwife Courtney, and I am kind of ready to tell you all my birth story. So if you are a millennial midwife follower, you know that around 35 weeks I posted a picture of my swollen feet and ankles. So that is when all of this started. So that was a Sunday. I went to a photo shoot that was outside with Mike, and I didn't have much water that day, so I attributed the swelling to that. But because I am a midwife and I know the things that I know, I had already planned on running preeclampsia labs when I went into clinic on Monday. So Monday comes. That morning I wake up and the swelling has gone down, but it wasn't like a lot. It had only gone down a little bit, so that kind of concerned me some. But again, we know that swelling towards the end of pregnancy can be normal, so I didn't really stress out too much about it. So I had our home visit, and my blood pressure was 120/78, which isn't high, but it's high for me. Like my baseline was like 100/58/60, so that was a little alarming to me, and the swelling hadn't gone away. Like it was still there. It would come and go, but it was still a thing. So we waited a very, very long time for my lab results to come in. And throughout that time, I had diagnosed and undiagnosed myself with preeclampsia about 1,000,000 times. There were lots of times where I cried and had breakdowns. In my journal, there's literally me like begging God, like, please don't let me have preeclampsia. And we'll get into, So I was on call that Thursday. It was my last call shift, but I was still scheduled to work clinic. So there was a birth that happened maybe 30 minutes before my shift, so I went in to finish up postpartum and discharge them. And I remember doing the newborn exam, and then the client's mom asked, like, oh, are you having your baby here? And I paused for a minute, and I said, I'm having my baby at home. And then I finished up with him, and I went into the office where Michelle was doing clinic. She didn't have an appointment, so I sat in there and I just started crying. And she was like, what's going on? And I said, I'm gonna try not to cry, sorry. I said, she just asked me where I'm gonna have my baby, and I don't know. And that was kind of when everything just started going bad. Like in that moment, my lab results came in, and my iron was low. It was like 10.4, which is an important part to this story. I was group B strep positive, which is also another important part to this story. And my PCR ratio, which is one of the main determining factors of preeclampsia, was 266, and the threshold is at 300. So I started to cry even more. Like I just really lost it, because I'm one of those people who's like, it's not gonna turn around. Like Michelle was like, oh, this doesn't mean anything. You know, we've seen plenty of clients who've had high PCR ratios, and then we do it again a week later and it's gone down. But I just knew that that wasn't going to happen for me. So I had Michelle check me because I just wanted to see like if there was any hope, you know, anything for me. And I was 2 centimeters and about 50 to 60% effaced, and baby was at -1 station, which was really good for 36 weeks and a few days. I was still very emotional, but Michelle let me cry it out, and then I went home and I just kind of chilled. I cried to Mike, of course, and he was like, it's okay, you know, like Michelle said, it doesn't mean anything. And I was like, we need to pack our hospital bag. And he was like, or I said we need to pack our just in case bag. And I remember him saying, it's our if pigs fly bag. And I don't know, I feel like a part of me just knew, but I was still trying to hold out hope. So Michelle calls me later that evening and she's like, hey, me and B talked and we've decided that this is your last day. Like, your leave is starting, once your shift ends in the morning at 9 a.m. Like, we just want you to rest. Just sit with your feet up and rest. Basically, they put me on bed rest because we just wanted to make it to term, to my due date, because B was in Colorado and she hadn't had plans of coming down until closer to Mila's due date. But Mila had other plans. So I just chill for the most part. My 37-week appointment was scheduled for Wednesday, so I didn't have any plans of doing much of anything until then, just kind of hanging out, taking Epsom salt baths, and just relaxing. Saturday morning, I lost my mucus plug, and it was a huge chunk. So we know that doesn't mean much of anything, but I started to get excited because I'm like, okay, maybe my body is just getting ready to get this girl out. And then nothing else really happened that day. Then I woke up, might have been Sunday morning at 5 to go pee. No. Friday morning, I lost my mucus plug. Saturday morning at 5, I woke up to go pee. And when I laid back down, I was having contractions. Well, at first I didn't think they were contractions because I've been having Braxton Hicks forever. But these were a little bit stronger. It was tightening. So I was like, let me start tightening them. So for about 2 hours, they were coming every 5 minutes, lasting about 50 to 70 seconds. So I'm like, oh, okay, we're having contractions. I'm just going to go to sleep because that's what I tell my clients all the time. So I went back to sleep and I woke up and there was nothing. They were gone. So I text Michelle and I'm like, hey, I know I'm not supposed to bother you with this, but I lost my mucus plug and I was having contractions this morning. So she's like, pelvic rest at least until Monday, because at Monday I was 36 weeks and 6 days. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to get this thing going. But I was like, okay. So I stopped drinking Nora-T. I stopped taking the labor prep pills that I have been taking, and I just kind of chilled. So then nothing came of that. So Wednesday morning, I woke up at 5 and I had a headache, and that scared me. So I took a Tylenol. When I ate breakfast, I took a Tylenol and I laid back down. When I woke up again, mid-morning, maybe 9 or so, it was gone. So I ate again, but I still didn't really feel well. I just felt kind of icky. So I just kind of laid down, and then my appointment was in the afternoon. So I feel like I got an Epsom salt bath I got in and I was in there for a good 2 to 3 hours. And then we went to our appointment, and I was telling myself on the way there, I'm not gonna check my urine myself. So normally I do that. I was like, I'm going to use the bathroom, I'm gonna get my weight. I want her to take my blood pressure before telling me what my dipstick results are. So we get there, I say hey to everybody. I go in the bathroom, I pee in a cup, I sit the cup down on the counter, and then I just full-on anxiety attack, crying hysterically. I just lose it. I didn't dip it or anything. I feel like that is just my mommy gut that was like, hey, something's wrong here and you know it. So I come out of the bathroom and everybody's like, what's wrong? And I couldn't even say what it was. Couldn't stop crying. So I get on the scale and I gained 11 pounds in a week. It's another sign. So that made me cry even more. I finally calmed down enough for the birth assistant to take my blood pressure. It was 130/78, which I'd been crying hysterically, so that could have been a factor, but still. And then she was like, yeah, and you had +3 protein in your urine. So I lose it even more, and we go sit out on the couch because Michelle was finishing up another appointment. And she had like no idea that I was out there even having a mental breakdown. So Michelle comes out and she's all happy, like, hey, sunshine. And then she sees my face and she immediately like grabs me and she's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, look at my chart. So she looks at my chart and she's like, okay, come in, let's talk. So we sit down and she's like asking me what's going on, and I'm telling her. And as soon as I said like, but I don't feel well, because she was just saying like, let's just run labs again because nothing is nothing is above baseline. Like an abnormal blood pressure is 140/90 or higher, and I never hit that. My edema, or the swelling in my legs, wasn't pitting. I didn't really like, it wasn't significant in my hands or my face, so it was like borderline but not like full on. But then when I said that I wasn't feeling well that day, she was like, okay, we need to go get evaluated. So we have a really good working relationship with the nurse midwives at Tampa General. So she called and they were swamped that day. I don't know what it was, but they were super swamped. So the nurse midwife was like, just do labs again, but if she really wants to come in, I would say wait until later, like maybe go home, get dinner, and then, shower and then come in. So we tried a different hospital, but we didn't know anybody that was like on, like the OB or anyone that was on staff. So we ultimately decided that we were gonna go home, eat dinner, and then kind of get prepared to go. I think this is a good place to pause our birth story. Stay tuned for part 2.